People like me and like my friends here tonight will be here. Recognizable, identifiable.
Singapore, a gleaming metropolis of wealth, veils a rigid control beneath. A place where unmatched safety and prosperity mask the quiet curbs on freedom, embodying the world's freest dictatorship. Here, the state's subtle yet firm hand guides both the market's pulse and the boundaries of speech. The rise of the People's Action Party, PAP, to a position of unrivaled power in Singapore isn't just a political success story. It's a masterclass in control, reminiscent of a chess grandmaster playing against beginners. From its inception, the PAP, under the strategic vision of Lee Kuan Yew, didn't just aim to govern. It sought to embed itself into the DNA of Singaporean governance. Lee Kuan Yew's leadership wasn't about gentle nudges, but rather about steering Singapore with the precision of a surgeon and the foresight of a prophet. Under the banner of national development, he orchestrated a transformation that would turn a fledgling nation into a global powerhouse.
I'm calculating in terms of the next generation, in terms of the next 100 years.
However, this metamorphosis had its costs. Political dissent wasn't just discouraged, it was drowned out by the roar of economic success. The PAP's grip on power is not just about longevity, but about the meticulous crafting of a narrative where stability and prosperity justify the muffling of dissenting voices. Media in Singapore doesn't operate on a spectrum of freedom, but within a carefully marked playground, boundaries defined by the state. It's a world where news outlets don't bite the hand that feeds, lest they find themselves out in the cold. This control extends beyond the press to the very essence of public discourse. Opposition voices in Singapore walk a tightrope, a balancing act of expressing divergent views without falling afoul of defamation laws that could financially cripple them. It's a climate where political stability is maintained not just through economic success, but through a legal and societal framework that leaves little room for deviation from the party line. Yet, for all its control, Singapore is not a dystopia, but a paradox. Its citizens enjoy a quality of life. That's the envy of the world, a testament to the fact that the PAP's methods, however controversial, have yielded tangible benefits. It's a nation that thrives under a model that would suffocate more tumultuous societies. The evolution of the PAP's governance is a study in adaptability, a recognition that to maintain control, one must evolve. Its strategies have shifted, not in essence but in execution, a dance between maintaining authority and addressing the needs and challenges of a modern Singapore. There are moments, however, when the facade cracks, when actions taken in the name of stability starkly contrast the principles of democratic governance. These instances, whether in the crackdown on activists or the stringent control over public assembly, serve as reminders of the price of Singapore's peace. In the grand scheme, the PAP's Singapore is a marvel of political engineering, a blend of authoritarian control and unparalleled civic order that's as impressive as it is controversial. It's a model that prompts a chuckle for its audacity and a nod for its efficacy, a real-life example of a benevolent dictatorship that somehow, against all odds, works. Singapore's economic narrative reads like a capitalist fairy tale, sky-high GDP and almost non-existent unemployment. But let's scratch beneath the surface. This economic prosperity isn't just a product of unfettered market forces, it's choreographed with the precision of a ballet, directed by a government that knows how to pull the strings. The open market policies? A carefully curated illusion where the state plays a leading role, not just a regulator, but a dominant market player through its myriad of state-owned enterprises. These entities don't just compete, they dominate, setting the stage for a performance where the free market is more a theory than practice. Then there's the twist in the tale, the use of economic success as the ultimate justification for political control. Look how well we're doing, the narrative goes, silencing critics with a wave of economic reports and growth charts. But delve a bit deeper, and you'll find the cracks in the facade. Workers' rights and income equality are the sacrificial lambs on the altar of progress, with tales of labor practices that would make international human rights advocates raise an eyebrow. International reports on Singapore's labor laws and practices paint a picture that's less than perfect, suggesting a dissonance between the nation's economic freedoms and its approach to workers' rights. It's as if Singapore's social contract is written in invisible ink, economic prosperity in exchange for political silence, a deal where questioning the status quo might just cost you more than you bargained for. But how sustainable is this model? Can you really keep a lid on dissent when the cost of living starts to outpace the narrative of prosperity? Singapore's story is a cautionary tale of what happens when economic miracles become the smoke and mirrors to distract from a lack of political freedoms. It's a balancing act of the highest order, and one can't help but wonder, when will the scales tip? In this context, Singapore's model is both a marvel and a warning, a system that works until the day it doesn't. It's a nation that's gambled on the idea that you can have your economic cake and eat it too, as long as you don't mind who's serving it to you. In the realm of leadership, Singapore's tale is one for the books, navigating the thin line between autocracy and visionary governance. At the helm of this narrative stood Lee Kuan Yew, a figure whose leadership style was less about holding hands and more about steering the ship through sheer force of will.
The next 1,000 years, we will be here. I won't be here, but people like me and like my friends here tonight will be here. Recognizable?
His tenure wasn't just marked by economic milestones. It was defined by a penchant for control that would make Machiavelli take notes. Lee's Singapore was a place where opposition wasn't a dialogue. It was a hurdle to be cleared. His policies and public statements often reflected a belief in the necessity of a strong hand to guide progress. This wasn't leadership by consensus, it was governance by conviction, with a side order of authoritarian flair. Under his watch, Singapore flourished economically, but at the cost of political freedoms, a trade-off that continues to spark debate. Comparing Singapore's leadership to acknowledged dictatorships reveals a curious blend of similarities and stark contrasts. While the city-state lacks the overt oppression seen in more notorious regimes, its subtle control over political discourse and public life hints at a softer, yet unmistakably firm, autocratic touch. Lee Kuan Yew's leadership was punctuated by statements that often sparked controversy, reflecting his unapologetic stance on governance and societal control. Among his notable comments, he once remarked, "If Singapore is a nanny state, then I am proud to have fostered one," unabashedly embracing the paternalistic approach to governance that Singapore is known for. This statement encapsulates his belief in the necessity of a guiding hand, even if it meant curtailing certain freedoms. Another instance of his direct approach was his defense of the Internal Security Act, ISA, where he asserted the importance of the act in maintaining the stability and security of Singapore, despite international criticism regarding its implications for human rights. Lee famously stated, "I am often accused of interfering in the private lives of citizens. Yes, if I did not, had I not done that, we wouldn't be here today." His stance on cultural and social issues was equally straightforward. Lee Kuan Yew once commented on the societal role of individuals, suggesting that being less than fully productive was not an option in his vision of Singapore. "We decide what is right, never mind what the people think." This reflects his prioritization of economic and social goals over individual freedoms, a principle that guided much of his policy making. Lee's perspective on democracy and governance was also controversial. He remarked, "What a country needs to develop is discipline more than democracy," summarizing his belief that the disciplined governance model of Singapore was more conducive to development than the Western model of liberal democracy. This style of leadership has profound implications for civil society and political freedoms. It's a world where dissent is often a path to obscurity, and political dialogue feels more like a monologue.
10 years from now, this will be a metropolis. Never fear.
The phenomenon of political dynasties further entrenches this governance style, raising questions about the long-term health of democracy in Singapore. The legacy of Lee and his successors paints a complex picture of Singapore's political future. On one hand, their governance has turned Singapore into a global powerhouse. On the other, it has left a legacy of control that future leaders may find hard to unravel. As Singapore continues on its trajectory, The balance between autocratic efficiency and democratic ideals remains a pivotal chapter yet to be fully written. Singapore's script on civil liberties reads like a well-oiled machine, precision engineered to maintain harmony, but at what cost? The city-state's laws on freedom of speech, assembly, and the press come with a fine print that's more restrictive than a straitjacket. Take the Public Order Act, for instance, which requires police permits for assemblies of even one person in public if it concerns a cause. Yes, you heard that right. Want to protest? Better get a permit, and spoiler alert, don't hold your breath. Then there are the libel laws, famously wielded like a sword against critics, activists, and opposition politicians. These laws aren't just about protecting reputations, they're about silencing dissent. Bloggers, journalists, and even international publications have felt the sting of defamation suits, turning critical commentary into a high-stakes gamble. The arts aren't immune either. Films, plays, and books undergo scrutiny, ensuring they align with national values. It's not censorship, they say. It's content regulation. But when your play gets shelved because it might undermine public confidence in the government, it sure feels like censorship. Surveillance and technology have become the government's eyes and ears, monitoring social media and online discourse with the efficiency of a hawk eyeing its prey. It's about shaping narratives, ensuring the storyline stays on script. Comparing Singapore to its democratic counterparts highlights a stark contrast in how civil liberties are upheld. While Singapore champions its low crime rates and social order, critics argue this comes at the expense of fundamental freedoms, a trade-off that sparked international debate. The narrative of security and harmony is the government's go-to justification for these controls. It's for your own good, they say, as if freedom was just another word for chaos. This paternalistic approach has its supporters, but it also raises questions about autonomy and the right to dissent. International advocacy groups haven't been silent, often highlighting Singapore's tight grip on civil liberties. Their reports and criticisms, however, tend to hit a wall of sovereignty and the narrative of exceptionalism that Singapore has curated over the years. The high cost of silence in Singapore is a complex equation of security, prosperity, and control. It's a system that works until you realize that the price is a whisper in the dark, a voice unheard, a dissent unvoiced. In Singapore's pursuit of harmony, the silence is deafening. Singapore's clean facade hit a snag with the arrest of Transport Minister S. Iswaran and real estate mogul Ong Beng Seng, shaking the city-state's anti-corruption pedestal. It's a plot twist in a nation priding itself on integrity where even whispers of corruption turn heads.
Transport Minister S. Iswaran has appeared in court today amid investigations for corruption.
The Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau, CPIB, took center stage, ensuring no stone was left unturned. These aren't just minor infractions. They're headline-grabbing sagas with the potential to rewrite Singapore's script on corruption. The gravity of these allegations against high-ranking officials underscores Singapore's zero-tolerance policy towards corruption. Yet, it poses the question, if pillars of the establishment can falter, who's immune? The CPIB's relentless pursuit of these cases puts its efficacy and autonomy in the spotlight, painting a picture of an entity as formidable as the island's famed skyline. Public and international reactions oscillate between shock and vindication. For some, it's proof that Singapore's anti-corruption armor isn't as impenetrable as touted. For others, it's a testament to the city's unwavering commitment to integrity, showcasing a willingness to scrutinize even the highest echelons of power. Singapore's legal machinery, designed to combat corruption with the precision of a surgeon, faces its litmus test. The outcomes of these high-profile cases could recalibrate the global perception of Singapore not just as a financial hub, but as a bastion of governance and ethical conduct. In the grand scheme, these episodes could either be blips on the radar or harbingers of a systemic shakeup. Regardless, they serve as a reminder that in Singapore's pursuit of incorruptibility, the battle is far from over. It's a narrative of a nation at a crossroads, grappling with the complexities of maintaining an image polished to a sheen, yet vulnerable to the smudges of human fallibility. Singapore markets itself as a global city, a hub where cultures converge, innovation thrives, and the economy booms. Yet, beneath this glossy exterior lies a narrative riddled with contradictions. For a country that pitches itself as the epitome of multicultural openness and dynamism, its internal mechanisms tell a different story. One of political control, suppression, and a brand of governance that raises eyebrows. The city-state's impressive global economic status is a magnet for expats and businesses worldwide. However, this allure often obscures the reality of a governance model that leans heavily towards authoritarianism. This dichotomy between external openness and internal control creates a unique tension that defines the Singaporean experience. Political control in Singapore isn't just about maintaining order, it's about curating a specific social and cultural dynamic. This approach has implications for diversity and inclusion, with policies and practices that sometimes feel at odds with the global image it seeks to project. The country's strict stance on dissent and public discourse can stifle the very creativity and innovation it aims to foster. Expatriates and immigrants offer a lens through which the realities of living in Singapore's free dictatorship come into sharper focus. Their experiences highlight the complexities of navigating a society where economic freedom is abundant, but political freedoms are on a tighter leash. These narratives challenge the perception of Singapore as an unproblematic paradise for the global elite. The question then becomes, how compatible is Singapore's strict governance with its aspirations to be a leading global hub for innovation and creativity? For a nation that prides itself on forward thinking and technological advancement, the constraints placed on free expression and political plurality seem like an anachronism. Singapore stands at a crossroads, caught between its desire to maintain control and its ambition to be a beacon of global innovation. The city-state's future hinges on finding a balance that allows it to remain both a secure and orderly society and a fertile ground for creative and diverse thought. A place where unparalleled economic feats coexist with a brand of freedom that's, well, less about liberty and more about compliance. If you found this video enjoyable, I would appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell.